Black Control, Bat Mid-Range is where we start today. 6 rounds of action coming for you, then a cut to the top 8, and then, of course, we'll play some elimination rounds and crown ourselves a champion. $5,000, 25 Open Series points, and an invite to our Season 2 Invitational is on the line this weekend.
And this is going to be a mastery of the unseen kind of matchup here. It's very hard for Jessup to get that card off the table if it resolves. He's got very good answers to individual threats like spot removal spells and sweepers with things like Crux of Fate, but Mastery of the Unseen can just keep cranking it out.
This build of Blue-Black Control that Jessup is playing, very reminiscent of what Shota Yasuka made the finals of Pro Tour Dragon Shakir with just last weekend. So you're going to find those main deck copies of Icefall Region, 2 Dragon Lord Slumgars, and a copy of Slumgar the Drifting Death. Brown going to start off with a Fleece Mane Lion.
So Max's game plan here, he's not as fast as a deck like Mono Red. His deck a little bit slower, but the upside that he has is he has more durability against sweepers because he has Mastery of the Unseen. He also has Dem Protector plus Deathness Raptor. So he can survive getting hit by sweepers and removal spells in a way that most aggressive decks cannot.
Fleece Mane Lion going to come across here for 3 points of damage. Jessup down to 17. We'll see how Brown wants to follow up here. He'll play a Windswept Teeth and just pass the turn back. Foul Tongue Invocation here from Jessup. He'll show a copy of Icefall Region. That will take care of the Fleece Mane Lion.
And this is bad news for Max because if Andrew was willing to take that hit from the Fleece Mane Lion and use Foul Tongue Invocation at the end of the turn, probably represents he has Dissolve or some other counter spell.
Pretty safe to draw that assumption. Jessup up to 21 now. There is a Swamp. And just a passing of the turn from Jessup over to Brown. Brown going to sacrifice his Windswept Teeth, search up a Plains or a Forest. He will go with a Forest, shuffle and present here in just a moment. We've seen Blue-Black Control do very well at the Pro Tour last week, and Adrian Sullivan, Shota Yasuka, and Andrew Allschlager all having a top 8 with that particular deck. All the builds do look different. This one, Yasuka's build that Jessup is playing. Again, those main deck dragons might seem a little out of place, but the player like Shota doing so well, you have to imagine it's a pretty good build.
Well, the card facilitates a lot of the dragon cards naturally. Also, a lot of the removal spells at this point don't tag Icefall Region. Valorous Stance is the card that a lot of people are going to right now, and that's just not something that can touch that dragon. Particularly for decks like Bat Midrange, where they don't have access to the best removal and they want to protect their own creatures.
Here is 2 mana from Brown after playing Yavimaya Coast. He'll deploy another copy of Fleece Mane Lion. See if this does resolve. See how much Jessup cares about this spell. We spoke of Dissolve. He does have one of those. So he will counter that Fleece Mane Lion. Take a look at the top card of the deck. The Scry from Dissolve looks like Jessup's going to leave it on top. See if Brown has a powerful follow-up. It looks like he does not, so we go back Jessup's way. Didn't get a great look at what Jessup left on top. We do know he has a copy of Jace's Ingenuity in hand. He'll play at Dismal Backwater, so he won't be able to play one of those 5-mana spells just yet.
And Andrew's game plan is very clear at this point. As long as he can keep the board clean and stable, these Jace's Ingenuity and whatever other dragons he's able to chain together should be able to beat whatever Max has got going on. Especially with Max not really playing anything. It looks like he's got a handful of lands and Dromoka's commands at this point. Not where he wants to be in this kind of matchup.
Opulent Palace there from Jessup. Brown will play a Flooded Strand. Sacrifice that. But yeah, this is exactly where Brown doesn't want to be. He just doesn't have a lot going on. And to be fair, these Blue-Black Control decks are really, really good against these kind of mid-range strategies, be it Obzon, be it Bant, what have you.
Well, Max has got a couple cheats for the matchup. Master of the Unseen is the top one, and then the combination of Deathness Raptor and Den Protector can also be problematic for Blue-Black Control. If he is not able to find those kind of cards, he just has a curve of some random creatures that can be broken up pretty easy by counterspells and Bioblights. On top of that, he's got 3 copies of Valorous Stance and 3 copies of Dromoka's Command, which aren't that productive against Andrew. So he's got an issue with dead cards, and he's got an issue with the fact that his clock is slow. He's really leaning on a couple particular cards to give him some game here, and he hasn't been able to find them.
Temple of Plenty very quickly puts the top card to the bottom for Brown. Jessup's going to draw 3 cards here with Jace's Ingenuity, pulling himself further ahead. And again, we already know that Jessup has a copy of Icefall Region in his hand from that Foul Tongue Invocation, so he's got at least one threat to maybe start trying to close the game out with. Ideally, you would like to play Icefall Region and lock down a threat, but I suppose at times it's perfectly acceptable to just play it as a 4-3 and get to work.
He can, though he's not in any particular rush to do so. As long as Max is not forcing him to play to the board, Andrew doesn't have to do anything. And at some point, Max has got to cast a creature. And at that point, Icefall Regent becomes a lot more attractive.
Jake's going to be here.
Den Protector, the draw here for Brown.
Patrick Klein. Is Patrick Klein in the room? All right, Patrick.
Looks like we are going to see him morph that. Morph's going to be more common now that there are better ones. We talk about Deathmiss Raptor, of course, Den Protector.
We saw a blue-green morph deck yesterday at 6-0.
We did.
Almost trip up Boswell.
Players will be announcing the exact player.
Here's a copy of Bioblight.
At the beginning of round 1, once we've acquired a final number. We'll be playing.
This will obviously force Brown's hand. He's going to sacrifice
to make a cut to the top 8.
his Windswept
I'd like
Teeth.
to let everyone know that for the top 8,
Forest or a Plains on the way. It'll be a forest.
will be in effect, meaning that the player with the better Swiss standing will have the option to play or draw without the top 8. Deck lists will not be shared for the top 8. And also, if you have a smartphone on you to avoid
And now it's,
being stuck at the pairings board.
I believe it is Unmegamorph.
Unmegamorph.
There you go. I know that you like to get that in when you can.
Yes.
Pairings every round. That will allow you to remain
Fleece Main Line is returned to hand.
until the beginning of the round. Players,
So that exchange is done occurring.
your deck lists before.
And now here's a copy of Dig Through Time.
Very efficient turn here for Jessup.
To say the least.
Thank you.
Jessup will take a look at his top 7 cards, of course, take 2 of them with him, and then move forward accordingly. Been a very, very one-sided game so far.
Max has never really been able to get anything of substance going on offense and has not found much in his way of value and attrition cards he kind of needs for this matchup. He has found a Den Protector, but nothing really juicy to get back there as it was dying, only a Fleece Mane Lion. And Fleece Mane Lion much less effective against these control decks now that they have access to Foul Tongue Invocation. The format was very light on edicts before, so going monstrous with Fleece Mane Lion against control decks was a way to steal certain games where you were otherwise losing. A lot harder to do that now.
And there are 2 copies of Foul Tongue Invocation in Jessup's list. Of course, he's already cast one of them, but just having outs the Fleece Mane Lion is pretty nice, as there's a copy of Haven of the Spirit Dragon. And now here is Slumgar, the Drifting Death. 2 mana happens to be open down there for Jessup. I imagine maybe a card like Slumgar Scorn will be cast here in a moment. There is Fleece Mane Lion.
I think Jessup would prefer to ignore or race a Fleece Mane Lion, especially with a 3/7 back on defense, rather than use one of his precious counter spells.
Sure.
If he has another Foul Tongue Invocation, well, then it becomes very easy.
And your pairings are available online. The judges are on their way out to the pairings boards. Please give them a way to access the pairings boards. Pairings for round 1 are up online. Thank you.
Jessup going to reorganize some mana. 8 lands in play. Pretty full grip as well. And still has that Icefall region that we saw much earlier in the game. He does have a copy of Slumgar Scorn in hand in case anything too threatening comes to the table from Brown's side. There is Icefall Regent. He will target the Fleece Mane Lion. Fleece Mane Lion will go monstrous. And Jessup doesn't seem to care at all.
Yeah, no rush to do anything. The longer this goes on, the better it is for Jessup, so he can sit back and block if he doesn't feel like he's in a position to attack just yet.
Looks like it's a copy of Jamoka's Command. And Brown will have to pay 4 for that Jamoka's Command, not 2 because of what Icefall Regent says. Got to pay 2 more to target that thing with the fight.
In
We'll
the
also
few
see-
weeks we've been on the open series with that card, we've seen this come up a lot.
Yeah, we really have. +1/+1 counter, the other ability there.
Attention legacy player Nick Kim. Nick Kim, please report to the scorekeeper station.
Here's another copy of Jamoka's Command. He was glutted with those.
Yeah, he has all 3 in his hand.
Yep. In some matchups, that'd be great. This is not one of them, though.
Well, the upshot here is if you can get Fleece Main Line to a 7-7, now you have something that can attack through Slumgar.
Yep.
And that might actually be enough to steal this game.
Yeah, at least he has some sort of plan here.
The third one might be good enough that it's worth a counterspell. If Jessup's plan is to have Slumgar back on defense, then I don't think he can allow Fleece Main Line to get to a 7-7.
Well, the third one will get countered. Slumgar Scorn will take care of that. 7 toughness is a lot.
It is a lot. That is a small victory for Max that he was able to cash in those Dromoka's commands for something. He's still behind in this game for sure, but he was glutted with a card that's very hard to cash in this matchup, and he was able to do something with his 3 copies.
Icefall Region comes down. Of course, it can't lock down Fleece Main Line, but it's just going to be a threat here. Here comes the 6-6. I think Jessup going to cautiously block with his 3-7. Hope nothing too bad happens here. Here's a handful of mana from Brown. Let's see what this is. All right, it's a Dragon Lord Ojutai. See if Jessup does have a removal spell or a counter spell for this. Removal spell will be useful if Brown ever decides to get into the red zone with that, but it could just be on defense for quite a while against these dragons.
Well, Jessup still controls the terms of engagement right now. If he has a removal spell for Dragon Lord Ojutai in the event that it gets into combat, he can go ahead and attack with Icefall Regent and have Slumgar back on defense to check the Fleece Main Lion and a removal spell for Dragon Lord Ojutai. If he does not, he can simply hold back on defense with his 2 creatures. So Jessup gets to decide how this one goes.
You saw Jessup activate his Haven of the Spirit Dragon, get back the Icefall Region from a little bit earlier.
Attention.
And he'll send in with his first
We
one.
have 154 players.
Trying to offer up the old trade.
We'll be playing 8 rounds
Brown not interested, however.
before collecting the top 8. Welcome to round 1. You have 50 minutes. Please begin.
Now there is another copy of Icefall Regent. And just a passing of the turn. Brown will untap that Fleece Main Line. That's 6-6. Dragon Lord Ojutai 5-4 out there. But as you mentioned, Jessup still gets to control the terms of engagement right now.
Exactly. He gets to determine how this one goes.
It's a morph. Could be Deathmist Raptor. Could be Den Protector. Both not bad in this situation.
Well, Den Protector is potentially a very big play here, as this allows Max to get back a Dromoka's command. That can push his Fleece Main Line to a 7-7, take care of one of the Icefall regions. And now Slumgar is no longer able to block the Fleece Main Line.
Den Protector it is. Brown considering getting back another Den Protector, but he'll get back Dromoka's command, perhaps for the play that you just mentioned. As he taps 4 mana, here is the command. It'll fight Icefall Regent, pay the extra 2, of course, and give a counter to the Fleece Main Line.
And I believe this is, again, worth a counterspell if Jessup has it, because this Fleece Main Line getting to 7-7 is really bad news.
No counterspell here. Fleece Main to the red zone. It is a 7-7. It does have some damage on it from the fight, so perhaps Slumgar has some interest in blocking, but that looks not to be the case. Ook in the draw.
Well, Ugin's pretty good in this spot because that kills everything Max has. So
That's good morning analysis right there.
just I'm warming up,
Yeah, you got your coffee?
revving up the engine a little bit.
Cappuccino or black coffee this morning?
Cappuccino.
Ugh.
The question is, if Max has another land drop. Oh, excuse me. He is at 8. Excuse me. So he's good to go.
We're both warming up.
Yeah.
We will see some blocks here, some trades, all that good stuff. -1 from Slumgar. Den Protector's going to die. Now Dragon Lord Ojutai, which is going to be a 4-3 now because of the Slumgar trigger.
Actually, it's -2/-2 because it's for each attacking
Oh, you were
dragon.
correct. See, you rarely see that matter.
Yeah, this has not come up a
You
lot. That's why
rarely
the Den
see
Protector
that
died,
matter.
and Dragons matter.
Yep. All right, here's Ugin.
Womp womp.
Why don't Max doesn't want to play anymore?
Well, Max did a really good job of pulling himself back into that game. It was looking hopeless there. The last turn before Ugin was drawn, it looked actually like he might have pulled ahead.
Max's draw that game was really bad.
Really bad.
Really, really bad.
But Ugin's just too much in that spot.
Andrew Jessup's going to win game number 1 here against Max Brown. Blue-Black controls up a game against Bat mid-range. Now, I imagine we're going to see these Dromoka's commands and maybe the Valor stances leave, and I'm hoping for Max that he has some better options in his board.
He's got some goods in here. 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, a Negate, 2 copies of Glare of Heresy, a Valorous Stance, 2 copies of Ration Cleric, a Plummet, 1 copy of Elspeth's Champion, an Ojutai's Command, 1 copy of Encase in Ice, and 2 copies of Stratus Dancer. So the counter spells here are very attractive. The 2 copies of Stratus Dancer, the 3 Disdainful Strokes, and 1 copy of Negate. I don't know if you want to go into some of the anti-creature cards. Max can bring in a copy of Plummet. He can bring in a copy of Ojutai's Command. Those cards are a bit on the narrow side because there's no telling exactly how many creatures Andrew has post-board and how many of them that he has are actually targetable. But that stuff might come in as well. I think the Stratus Dancers, the 3 Disdainful Strokes, and the Negate all represent pretty big upgrades over Valor's Stance and Dromoka's Command, and then past that, it's if Max feels like any of his main deck cards are not that efficient. Sometimes in these control matchups, you see people get away from a couple copies of their Sylvan Caryatid because the game's gone for a long time. People are getting hit by sweepers and so forth. But in a matchup where your opponent has Foul-Tongue Invocation, Caryatid might be a valuable buffer, so we'll see.
3 Duress, a Bioblight, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 1 Negate, 2 Stratus Dancer, 3 Drowned in Sorrows, a Virulent Plague, another copy of Foul-Tongue Invocation, and a Dragon Lord's Prerogative here for Andrew Jessup.
I think another copy of Foul-Tongue Invocation will be coming in this matchup. I think the additional copy of Bioblight will be coming in. And, you know, there's arguments for things like Virulent Plague. There's arguments for things like Drown in Sorrow. I think those cards are pretty low in efficiency overall, but they are options.
Well, these players will shuffle up here for game number 2. We will very quickly talk about what's on the line here on day number 2 for everyone who has made it in the competition. First place, that's obviously the big one, $5,000, 25 Open Series points, and an invite to our Season 2 Invitational.
And for a lot of the players that we have here, those 25 Open Series points is a huge part of the reason that they're there. Andrew Boswell is a great example of someone who's been on the fringes of the race for the Players' Championship at various points last year and this year. 25 points shoots him way up in the standings. And for a lot of players competing in this event, this is a great path to the Invitational as well.
Season 2 Invitational right around the corner here, and we talk about the Season 2 race 2 through 6. Fabiano, Miriam, Kevin Jones, Danny Jessup. Those guys are making a real race at things, and one win. One of those guys able to get a W here this weekend. They'll take the lead.
Oh, it's very tight. I mean, Danny Jessup and Kevin Jones are separated right now by 5 points. It's very little. Gerard Fabiano, he should be in the house today. He missed the main event today. He said he was coming up today to play in the Modern IQ. Good opportunity for him to pick up points. Ross Miriam had a pretty productive day 1 yesterday.
7-2.
7-2. Definitely opportunities for these players to catch up.
Ross Bungadecki is very comfortable with the Sultai Reanimator. Won Connecticut States with it last week. He's been playing it more in tournaments, says he likes it quite a bit. Just caught a really bad matchup at the back end of yesterday.
It was not a good matchup against the Dissolve deck, that's for sure. Or didn't look good at least.
No.
I mean, Ross does have some good sideboard cards in the matchup and some angles of attack, but he got his clock clean pretty thoroughly in those sets of games.
Max Brown, 2013 Las Vegas Invitational champion, had a human token made. He'll be on the play. He'll start things off with a Forest. Andrew Jessup, the opponent, did win game number 1, did Jessup. Both these players, they want to make top 8. They're going to have to run off a 6-0.
Yeah, it's going to be perfect. There's no margin for error for either of these players. Bad tiebreakers and 3 losses already.
Sylvan Caryatid on turn number 2 here for Brown. He's down to 19 for that windswept teeth. Jessup's second land is included Delta. Here is a Thoughtseize. So we'll see what Brown's working with here. A Courser of Krufix, Den Protector, Disdainful Stroke, Yavimaya Coast, and a Flooded Strand. Pretty
solid hand here from Max. Some sources of card advantage, a way to protect himself from some of Andrew's big plays. You almost feel like Andrew kind of has to take Den Protector because anything else he takes, Den Protector is likely to just get back.
Sure. Courser not the most threatening card in this situation, I would say.
Well, Courser is a very good play for Max next turn. So there's an argument to take Courser here, but if you think the game's going to go on for a long time, I think Den Protectors has to be the most problematic card.
It looks like Jessup agrees with you.
If there was a clear hole you could poke in this hand, or if Andrew was trying to set up some immediate proactive play, maybe you take something else. But I think just in that spot, more often than not, it's just going to be Den Protector that gets selected.
Deathmiss Raptor the draw for Brown this turn. And he will deploy the Raptor. Get some beatdown started. Played a Floating Strand too. He'll pass the turn back over to Jessup. See if Jessup has a third land here. Looks like he does have a copy of Urborg in his hand.
Been a little bit of a breakout party for Deathmiss Raptor the last couple weeks.
Absolutely.
We saw a little bit of it at the Invitational in Richmond. Not a lot, but a little bit.
Chris Anderson having it in his Green-White Devotion deck.
Yeah, but Syracuse and the Pro Tour definitely saw an uptick in this card.
Here's Courser. Top card is a Plains. That's going to enter the battlefield. Trigger, of course. We'll put Brown up to 20. Fleece Main Lion could be the draw step next turn if Brown would like it to be. He, of course, has a fetch land in play, so he could shuffle it away. Disdainful Stroke in hand at the ready here for Max as well.
Remember, Andrew's aware of that Disdainful Stroke as well. So Andrew's going to be loath to cast a 4-mana spell next turn, unless he's so worried about Fleece Main Lion that he's willing to pay that cost to make Max shuffle his deck, because Max would have to break his Flooded Strand here to access blue mana.
Hero's Downfall, able to tap that blue to Delta for black mana thanks to the Urborg. That'll take care of the Courser. Jessup will draw. Looks like you picked up a copy of Bile Blight. You can see a copy of Crux of Fate in hand. Haven of the Spirit Dragon can be the land for the turn.
You can see what the Bant mid-range plan is for in the matchup, though. Max is just sort of trying to wear Andrew out.
Yep.
A lot of these cards are generating 2-for-1s, or they're prohibiting Andrew's development in some way. And if Max can keep doing that while getting in the occasional chip shot with something like Courser, Crewfix, or Deathmiss Raptor, that's a very solid game plan.
Courser's going to resolve. Top card's Manic Influence. That's going to enter the battlefield. Trigger up to 21 here for Brown. We'll see the next card is an Island. Wouldn't be surprised to see him shuffle that one away. Here's the attack with the Deathmiss Raptor. Jessup will take 3 more. Down at 12. Andrew will draw. Does have Ugin in his hand. Not sure there's a 5th land over there, though. Looks like there is, however, with an island. Now the big question here for Jessup is how can he set up a Crux of Fate when he knows his opponent has Disdainful Stroke? Now, to Jessup's credit, he does have a copy of Jace's Ingenuity.
That is a way to set it up, though there's no guarantee that Max even fights over Jason's Ingenuity. If Max feels like his board is developed enough that he doesn't really care about Andrew drawing, some random Hero's Downfalls or so forth, he could just hold on to the Disdainful Stroke, not fight over the card drawer, and save it for Crux of Fate, some Dragon, or some other way for Andrew to actually catch up.
You saw Brown sacrifice a fetch land, get an island. Drew a Windswept Teeth for the turn, Windswept Teeth on top of the deck. Now we're going to come into the red zone. We think, hey, he says, you know what, I better get this land first, just in case anything bad happens. Now Fleece Main Line on top of the deck. Now attacking's a good idea. Five damage going to be dealt. Jessup down to 7. These counter spells kind of put you in a weird rock and a hard place if you're Jessup. You'd like to be able to just be able to cast your spells and not have to worry about anything, but your opponent has Disdainful Stroke, so you have to kind of play in a weird way.
He's got to bait it out with something that's good but not too good, and this Fleece Main Lion here is great for Max, because if Andrew's plan here is to play something like Jason's Ingenuity or some setup spell to get to Crux of Fate, Max has the option of just saying, okay, you get to do all that stuff, and if you ever put your shields down, I have the option of going monsters with Fleece Main Lion, and then a lot of your catch-ups don't work here as well.
You're having the perfect amount of mana, too. 2 mana to play the Fleece Main Lion, 5 to activate Monstrosity. and still has that disdainful stroke in hand. Here's Chase's ingenuity. And Max very quickly lets that resolve.
Yeah, that disdainful stroke is on lockdown for something like Crux of Fate or maybe an Icefall region, some way to actually catch up here. At this point, Andrew can draw all the cards he wants from Max's perspective. Max is just trying to jam him up on mana.
There's a swamp. So that's land number 6 here for Jessup. And in this situation, again, because Andrew knows that his opponent has disdainful stroke, casting a Crux of Fate and crossing the fingers, well, that's off the table.
He can't do that. He can try to lead here with the Murderous Cut. Murderous Cut is unlikely to draw a disdainful stroke out of Max. And then if he has a card to play underneath 4 mana, like Hero's Downfall, he can clean up the board a little bit.
We're going to get a Monstrosity activation, it looks like.
This is a pretty aggressive play for Max, because Max did have the opportunity to just go into my turn, untap, and attack you for lethal.
Yeah.
And this is a very good window now for Andrew to potentially play some expensive cards out of his hand that were locked up by the disdainful stroke. You can see he has a hand with Murderous Cut and Hero's Downfall.
Yep.
So he could get the whole thing.
Fleece mainline the draw. Stratus Dancer on top of the deck.
I'm not sure what the incentive was there for Max to go for it there, because he had nothing really to do with his mana. He gets to untap with Disdainful Stroke and the ability to monster his Fleece mainline all on the table. And Andrew's being attacked for lethal. So Andrew has to pull the trigger on some removal spell there, and that might be an easy window for you to go monsters with your Fleece mainline.
It's a Murderous Cut now. Entire Graveyard's going to go away. He'll take care of Courser. That'll resolve very quickly. Deathmatch Raptor will put Jessup down to 4. Fleece mainline will be cast. Now Jessup does have a copy of Slumgar Scorn in hand. The question, of course, is does he have a Dragon and Company? It looks like the answer is no. So Jessup will untap. He's in a little bit better position now, but he's still got some work to do. Stratus Dancer will get turned face down. Courser no longer in play, but that'll be Brown's draw next turn.
You can see how much better things get for Max to the post board when he has access to these counter spells. And Stratus Dancer is another troubling card for Jessup to see in this spot. Game 1, Jessup has free range to just cast his big stuff. He can tap out for a lot of it. Now it requires a lot more dancing for him to be able to get through this.
There's a line activation again. Here's a Hero's Downfall. Again, I'm with you. It seems strange to see these activations at the end of turn.
It seems like it's a weird spot to do it when you're untapping and attacking for lethal. Andrew has to respond to your attack. And at that point, that seems like a pretty good window to go ahead and go monstrous. You might draw out 2 removal spells on your Fleece mainline that way. Just doing it in a spot where Andrew's got all of his mana available and he's going to have to use a removal spell anyway to stay alive, it just does not seem very efficient to me.
The Morph is a Stratus Dancer. Jessup knows that. Brown will attack here for 3, put Jessup down to 1. So that Polluted Delta for now is just going to be a swamp thanks to Urborg.
And Jessup with Ugin in hand. Not something that he can do because of the Disdainful Stroke. Doesn't even have 8 mana. That was his one opportunity to catch up, but could never get the Disdainful Stroke out of Max's hand, and now we go to game 3.
Max Brown going to win game number 2 here against Andrew Jessup. Bat mid-range and blue-black control will play a 3rd game. And you mentioned it when we were talking about sideboarding. Max just gets to get some of the bad cards out of his deck and some real ones into it.
The counter spells were all sorts of trouble there for Jessup. Stratus Dancer was a problem. Disdainful Stroke was in Max's hand the whole game, and Andrew could never really operate around it. He tried his best to draw it out of Max's hand with that Jace's Ingenuity, but Max had such a developed board at that point that he could say, go ahead and draw some cards. I'm going to try to bottleneck you on your mana, and Andrew died with, 5 spells in his hand.
And he could never, in any situation, cast Crux of Fate into it. either
Right.
to say you have to counter this and then move forward accordingly, because if he did that, he just would have died.
Exactly.
Game number 3 going to be underway here in just a moment, but we will very quickly talk about the feature match area here on twitch.tv/SCG Live. You can hop in and chat right now.
I'm sure some of you are as well. If you're not a subscriber, you are in slow mode chat, which means you can post once every 2 minutes. But with a subscription for only $4.99 a month, you get access to unlimited posting and custom emoticons and badges. So head over to twitch.tv/SCG Live and hop into the feature match area right now.
More emoticons coming during the Season 2 Invitational, so look forward to those, folks. Twitch.tv/SCG Live. Thank you for joining us this morning here from Providence. Cedric Phillips, Patrick Sullivan, Ken Crocker on the sideboard, along with the rest of the SCG Live crew. We're in round number 10 of action. On top of the standings right now is Andrew Boswell with Obs on Aggro. Went 9-0, slice and dice his way through the competition pretty easily yesterday.
We had him on camera, I believe, twice. He did play a compelling match against the blue-green morph deck. That was one of the more interesting matches yesterday in the 6-0 bracket. So that was a deck that I was definitely interested to see. I think it's got some legs.
There's a deck coming with it.
Yeah. As per many people's request.
Well, we take requests of the people,
Yeah.
especially when you have a morph deck at 6-0. It's pretty impressive.
Had a very good match against Boswell, too.
Yeah. Collective Company looked really, really good from that deck. But I think that card's just really, really powerful.
I read Chapin's article on that card as it pertains to Modern. A lot of people feeling like it could potentially replace Birthing Pod now that Birthing Pod's banned in various synergistic creature strategies.
Poor Pod. I miss it. I'm a Birthing Pod guy.
Yep.
Temple of Deceit will start things off here for Jessup in game number 3. Top card did go to the bottom.
Super high power level, variance ruining, super shuffling.
Love it.
Yeah. Spike!
Yeah, absolutely. And Urborg and a passing of the turn over to Brown. Brown has a Forest. He has a Fleecemane Lion. There's a Bile Blight to get that off of the table. Jessup will draw. It's an island here for Andrew. And a passing of the turn back over to Brown. Brown has Dragonlord Ojutai in hand. He now has a Sylvan Carry added. A couple copies of Valorous Stance and a Den Protector. There is Carry added. Here's Flooded Strand. See if Jessup wants to pull the trigger on this Foul Tongue Invocation.
It doesn't get a lot better than this.
No. Yep, he will use it.
That's the thing about edicts. You kind of have to use it on the first thing that shows up.
Icefall Region will be revealed. Jessup up to 24. Jessup will untap, take a draw for his 4th turn. See if he has his 4th land. He does, in a Dismal Backwater. He's up to 25. Kick it back over to Brown for his 4th turn. Carry out of the draw. Max will have to cast his mana this turn. No land to actually play. Jessup with another copy of Dismal Backwater. He's at 26. Pass it back over to Brown. Brown will draw. Looks like Den Protector is what he picked up. That'll be a Courser this turn. Take a look at the top card. Nope, maybe not.
Yeah, with Max fumbling around on his mana a little bit, I think that it would be fine for Jessup to sort of just counter the first good play that shows up regardless. And with Max fumbling around with his lands a little bit here, I think that's a no-brainer on that dissolve.
And the way Max played, he assumed it was going to resolve.
Yep.
But that is not the case. Now remember, Jessup does have Icefall Regent in hand, and he can maybe feel like getting a little aggressive, even though it doesn't get to lock down anything. There's the possibility of that.
Seems a little too early to go into pure damage race mode. And I think with Foul Tongue Invocation in hand and Max struggling with his mana a little bit, I think this makes more sense. Jam up his mana a little bit, and Max will be loath to tap out for some reasonable threat here because it just curves into Andrew's Icefall Regent.
Negate the draw here for Brown. Looks like he's going to maybe play Fleecemane Lion.
I just don't know if he can unless he hasn't answered the Icefall Regent. I think if he just goes Fleecemane Lion go and has no response, then he's in big trouble. as long as Jessup is not willing to commit the Icefall region to the table if the board's empty, which you kind of get the sense that that's how Jessup's playing the matchup, I think Max is probably better served just sitting here and sitting on negate.
Max is going to sacrifice that flooded strand, get himself an island. It's an interesting situation because it seems like Max feels like he should cast something. It might be a morph to Den Protector here.
I think his hand's just Valorous Stance and creatures, so.
Yeah, he's going to go with a morph Den Protector.
I know it's an unorthodox play and it's giving Jessup a lot of draw steps, but I think as long as Andrew's not willing to cast Icefall region on an empty board, Max should sort of keep the board empty and hold up negate.
Maybe draw some lands to work his way out of it.
Cast multiple spells in a turn or find an answer to Icefall region. You know, if you find a Disdainful Stroke, that changes things quite a bit, but given the nature of Max's hand, I don't think he has the ability to just raise this Icefall region.
Well, the region's going to come down and lock down the Den Protector. Land was the draw for the turn for Brown. It's a Windswept Teeth. The region has gotten max value now, and Valorous Stance isn't something that can take care of it either.
Exactly.
As good of a card as Valorous Stance is, does not line up well against the 4/3 Dragon. Brown will just have to pass. We're going to head Jessup's way. He gets to untap all that mana with an Icefall region in play. He's at 30.
Yeah, gained quite a bit off of these lands and foul tongue implications.
And he may have just drawn another copy of Icefall region. Step one's the attack. Brown's going to go down to 15.
And it's interesting to see what Jessup wants to do here. It is risky to cast this into the maw of a potential Disdainful Stroke. We know that Max is sitting on negate, so the rewards are very high for Andrew if he just jams the Icefall region here, but it is risky business.
What's interesting here is that he has Icefall region. He also has a copy of Dig Through Time. So, you know, which card does he weigh? I suppose which cards does he find to be more important? Because if he's worried about Disdainful Stroke, he can just play Icefall region and say, that's fine, I don't care if you counter it. And then Dig Through Time is the card I care about actually resolving.
Right. I think that Icefall region this turn is a huge prize because it takes all the wind out of Max's sails, and Jessup sets up a 2-turn clock. He's got 8 in the air and with Max at 15. But you also just don't want to run this into a counter spell. That's the type of tempo swing that allows Max to maybe get back into this thing.
And Jessup himself does have a copy of Slimdar's Score in hand, so he can just leave up his counter magic too if he doesn't play this.
He has an easy out to just say, okay, play on.
He will take the easy out. Just pass the turn back. But while that fetch land is being activated, here's Dig Through Time.
And this is potentially a small error there from Max. With 2 mana up, you know, he has Den Protector, he has Negate in hand. He may have been better served just preemptively cracking that fetch land because Andrew got to respond here by resolving a Dig Through Time. And now Max doesn't get to play back with his Negate.
This is true. Jessup's going to take a look at 7 cards here, of course, from Dig Through Time. Take 2 with him. He has made his selection. Den Protector will be unmorphed. Unmegamorphed.
Unmegamorph. And Max getting land number 5 there.
Yep. Brown will draw. Picked up a copy of Den Protector. You see the hand, 2 Valorous Stance, Dragonlord Ojutai. Negate over there as well. There's a land. Here comes Fleecemane line. Jessup shrugs his shoulders. Says, I'm at 30, dude. You got a long way to go.
All right, that's a 10th of it.
Yeah. So he's going to go down to 27. Brown's going to sacrifice a fetch land here.
And if Max here is tapping out for Dragonlord Ojutai, which I believe is the case, I think Andrew with Slimgar Score in hand, another Icefall region is going to be too much to overcome here.
Yeah, I think so.
this turn and then next turn is going to be way too bad for Max.
I think we're about to see Dragonlord Ochitai.
And Max's hand is forced to some degree to try to do this because he's losing the race so convincingly that he has to get a little bit greedy.
There is Slumgar scoring. I don't think he's left with much of an option.
Right, it looks bad, but what else is he going to do? He's got a handful of Valorous stances and a negate that can't answer the board.
Well, it's not Icefall region. It's a different dragon.
Sure. This is fine, too.
Yeah, Dragonlord Slumgar. However, that one can be killed by Valor Stance. Death Miss Raptor the draw. There's Valor Stance. Bye-bye, Dragon. Fleece main line will come back over to Brown. Now Max has decided if he wants to play a card like Death Miss Raptor here.
A lot of this just depends on what his outs are to Icefall region. I think that Max just kind of has to cast the stuff that's in his hand here. Sitting on negate does him no good if Andrew doesn't have to cast a spell for the rest of the game to win.
Just looking at his deck list is just very soft Icefall region.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem. There's Death Miss Raptor. He'll pass the turn back.
It's very hard for him to leave in Dramoka's command.
Yeah,
you know,
borderline impossible.
Icefall region has appeared to just be a pretty big hole in the armor.
Jessup does have Crux of Fate in hand right now, too. So you can destroy all non-dragons if you'd like. He's got a real stranglehold on this game.
Yeah, he's got a lot of very good lines of play here. I think the consideration is what are Max's ways to get out from Icefall region? Is it worth popping down to the second Icefall region and just setting up lethal for next turn? Or are you better served taking care of the board and trying to win the game in 2 turns?
Well, I like the Max Greed approach, but I always do. Play another Regent. He hasn't proven me that he can answer the first one.
Exactly, and if his answer is something like Dramoka's command, it's his entire turn anyway, so it's not the end of the world.
You can see Brown's hand. I do not believe he has an answer to this. A couple Den Protectors over there. Using Den Protector to get back Dragonlord Ochitai is a very slow way to go about doing things, and he does not have enough time to do all of that. And he will extend the hand. Andrew Jessup's going to win this match over Max Brown. 2-1. Blue-Black Control will take care of Bant mid-range. For Jessup, he'll move on to 7-3. One more win away from obviously making top 8. He's got 5 more of those to go.
Yep.
So one win underneath his belt. Brown will